God's message of love to you from the other women in the Bible.
Hi, this is Larry Watlington of GETL Ministries, and we are again back with you with another episode of The Other Women in the Bible. Now, this is a young lady that, unless you are a scholar and have done a lot of reading in the book of Judges, may have never heard her name. Her name is Jael, Jael, Jael. Now, who is Jael, and why did she make this list of the other women in the Bible? Probably because we don't talk about her that much. Well, Jael was the wife of Eber, and he was a Canaanite. So who were the Canaanites? It's important to kind of follow this trail. God protected the Canaanites because they were descendants of Moses' father-in-law. If you remember, we talked about Kippur back in the early one, and he said, her father was a Midianite. Well, through that same lineage, the Kenites came along as well. Now, Heber, who was a Kenite, he had left his people, and now he's living amongst the Canaanites. Okay, so now you have this Kenite who has been traditionally protected, have been covered by God, and because God told Moses, don't kill them, and the generations thereafter likewise. But Heber said, I don't want to live this way. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to go hang out with the Canaanites. Well, the Canaanites in the book of Judges, and we're in Judges chapter 4, by the way, chapter 4 as well as chapter 5. This kind of covers a lot of ground in the book of Judges. During that time, Deborah, who was another young lady, was the prophetess, and she was a judge of Israel at that time. Now, her commander, who was Barak, he was the commander of Israel's army, and they knew that the Canaanites had a mighty army, and the Canaanite army was led by a man by the name of Sisera. Now, Barak wanted to attack the Canaanite army. And Deborah likewise says, yes, we're going to attack because that's what God had told them to do. Go take over that land. And Barak says, well, I'll only attack them, Deborah, if you come along with us. Now, because he didn't take the mantle and go himself, his blessings were hindered. Because it wasn't up to Deborah. She was the prophetess. She was the judge. She wasn't the military leader. So it was not her job to go to war. But Barak, well, I'll only go if you go with me. So his faith was lacking in God. Meaning that he had faith in Deborah and through God, but not himself. All right, so during this attack, so they went and attacked, and during this time, God sent a mighty rain, a mighty flood that hindered Sisera's army. Now, because the army that Sisera had at that time, they were technology advanced because they had chariots built with metal and iron and bronze. So they were a technically advanced army at that time. But when those chariots, those iron chariots, when they hit the mud and the rain, they just got stuck. And Barak and Israel's army came in and they prevailed. They won. Sisera wasn't killed, but he took off running. He took off. He was gone. And Barak chased him. So here's Sisera running, and here's Barak running, and they're chasing. And all of a sudden, Sisera comes up on Heber's tent. And this is where Jael. You remember, Heber, he's no longer living with his people. He had now moved over with the Canaanites. So he was, kind of siding with Sisera. So Jael says, okay, Sisera, hey, come on in. I know you're tired. You've been, fighting. You've been in war. Barak is chasing. Come on in here and have some and rest for a minute. Now, this is what she did. So she made him a little pallet. He laid down. She gave him some milk and covered him with a rug. What happens when you give a little baby or anybody some nice warm goat milk and cover him with a rug? Here is Sisera now, sound asleep, snug as a bug in a rug, fast asleep. So while he is sleeping, Jael takes a tent peg. Now, a tent peg is a piece of wood that you use to drive down the hole. If you ever put up a tent, the peg is what holds those lanyards in place. She took a tent peg and a hammer. She went up and she drove that tent peg through Sisera's temple, right through his head. And then when Barak, who had been chased him, showed up, here Sisera was dead. And Jael says, hey, the guy you're looking for, he's right here. Already got it. Goes back to what was prophesied earlier. Now, here's a term that's used with Jael. Blessed is she among women. If you go to Judges chapter 5, verse 24, when the word got out that Jael had killed the leader, the captain of Israel's of the Canaanite army, that's how she was revered, lifted up. Blessed is she among women. You know where you've heard that again? And I don't know if you remember. If you go to Luke chapter 1, verse 42, that's what Elizabeth said of the Virgin Mary. Blessed are you among women. So here's Jael being elevated on that same status. Now, even though Jael's husband had moved from under the protection of God because he no longer was a Kenite, he was living with the Canaanites, she did not risk it. You know, just because my husband is an idiot, I don't have to follow suit. And she did. She risked a lot to ensure Israel's victory. So take away from that, don't compromise. Don't compromise your position. Always remain under God's protection. So you may be married to an idiot. Hey, I know you say, well, the two shall become as one, but sometimes you're married to an idiot. So don't you lose your covering, your protection. Stay under God's plan. Okay? Just like Jael said, no, just because Eber, you got us over here in this mess, we're gonna have to fix it. Now, what her actions did, like I say, it fulfilled the prophecy that Sisera would be delivered into the hands of a woman, and Barak, who was Israel's captain, would not get the credit. So many times, you see, victory comes through some very unexpected sources, unexpected places. Now, here we have an unarmed woman who kills the commander of the oppressor's army. And there's some takeaways from this as well. Why? Because look what Jael did. She used the natural resources that God had given her, like a tent stake and a hammer. And she was good with that. Why was she so good with it? Let me tell you why. Because in that time, the Bedouins, whenever they would move, a lot of times the women were the ones who were responsible for setting up the tents. So when they would move from place to place. So Jael had a lot of practice of driving tent stakes in the ground. Because every time they'd move, got to set the tent up, she's out there driving tent stakes. So I'm sure those forearms, they were ripped, you know. And her accuracy, probably just one time. Boom! So she used the natural things that was already there. She didn't have to go out trying to find a sword or a spear or anything like that. She took what God had already provisioned her with and used that to the fullest. My question, are we using the natural tools that God has given us to bring him glory, to bring him honor, to bring about victory? Think about that and think about Jael. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church.
Hear God's message of love.